I'm not sure why I gave it the benefit of the doubt. I think that's just, unfortunately, I'm the kind of person that does give things the benefit of the doubt, but this book did not deserve the benefit of the doubt. Hi, I'm Effie, and this is What Effie Reads. Today I'm going to be talking about some books, I don't know, 10-ish maybe books, that I wish that I'd never read. So, spoiler warning ahead, because I think the vast majority of these books, the reason that I wish I'd never read them pertains to spoilers about the books. And also content warning for some pretty disturbing stuff, unfortunately there's transphobia, body horror, discussions of non-consensual sex, paedophilia, queerbaiting, so lots of unpleasant stuff. I will pop timestamps in the description down below, so please feel free to jump around if you haven't read some of these books that I'm talking about. But if you want to hear about some books that I really wish I'd never read, stick with me and you'll get all the juicy tea. So the first book that I'm going to be talking about is How It All Blew Up by Arvin Ahmadi. And this book is really, really exceptional and I loved it. However, there's one aspect to it that I hate so much that I kind of wish I'd never read this book, and it is the nipple story. This is quite a horrifying thing, so buckle in. But basically, throughout this story, you're repeatedly told about something that they refer to only as the nipple story. And every time nipples get brought up in a slightly strange event happens that's involving nipples, you're like, no, that isn't the nipple story. And then you eventually get to the nipple story and it is horrible. Basically what happens is that two people are getting physical with one another, and one person ends up playing with their partner's nipples, and said partner has pierced nipples, and somehow through the play they manage to pull out a tendon or a nerve or something from the piercing in the nipple, and it is just so disgusting to read. And I read this book over a year ago now, I think, and it stuck with me because it's so horrible. But apart from that, the book is really, really good. I just wish it didn't have that one particular thing, because it definitely did not add to the book and made this book go from being a 5-star to a 4.5. I was rating slightly differently when I read this book, but for me to have knocked it down probably says all you need to know about how horrible I found this particular aspect of the book. The next book that makes this list is a book called My Brother's Name is Jessica by John Boyne. And this is the book that made me refuse to read any more John Boyne. As the title might suggest, it is an incredibly transphobic piece of writing. I went into this book thinking maybe the title was done in such a way to be eye-catching and it wouldn't be transphobic. I'm not sure why I gave it the benefit of the doubt. I think that's just, unfortunately, I'm the kind of person that does give things the benefit of the doubt, but this book did not deserve the benefit of the doubt. It is so incredibly transphobic, So throughout this book, I listened to an audiobook, which is relevant only because, like, that's the only way I know, like, how far away from the end I was. So throughout this book, the character of Jessica is repeatedly dead named, and she is referred to using the wrong pronouns. She's referred to as someone's brother, and it's just a horrible, horrible book. And this dead naming, using the wrong pronouns, referring to her as someone's brother, carries on right up until 20 minutes before the end of this book. 20 minutes. And this was me listening to it on one time speed, so it's very, very close to the end of the book. And in fact, just to solidify it, just in case you weren't sure how transphobic this book is, there is one character who treats Jessica with the bare minimum of human courtesy and respect, in that they call Jessica by her name, they use the correct pronouns, and, you know, they don't completely just disrespect her. And this character is portrayed as being hippy dippy, a bit out there, and just generally, you know, wacky. Like, to the point that this character that actually treats Jessica with respect is said to have sold her car so that she could buy a horse. And she screams "meat is murder" at random intervals. And this is the only character in the book that treats Jessica with respect. And I just think, what on earth were you playing at, John Boyne? And then just add insult to injury. In the acknowledgements, Boyne claims to have, like, worked with trans people and to have had sensitivity readers. And then after this book came out and people were like, yeah, you know what, this isn't right, Boyne dug his heels in and said, oh no, it's fine, I'm gay, I can't be transphobic. And I'm just, oh, this book needs to have never existed. It is horrible, and I don't know why it was ever written. I don't know why it didn't have a proper sensitivity reader. I don't know why someone didn't slap Boyne upside the... I'm a pacifist. I'm not condoning anyone actually slapping him. But, like, I don't know why someone didn't, like, slap some sense into Boyne and go, what on earth are you doing? Yeah. Not a happy bunny about that book. And the time I wasted reading it as well. The next book we've got is a really, really popular book, but no, it wasn't for me. And it is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And this book, it's kind of a two-pronged reason why I didn't like it. The first is that the way it's written, the things it discusses, and not even like the mental health stuff, it's the discussion of like parasocial relationships and whatever, got me in a really dark place. Like, it really impacted my mental health listening to this book. So that wasn't great, and I do wish that I hadn't have had that like mental health dip. But the second reason is that the hype is so strong with this book. Like, people absolutely love it, and it's just not original. I was expecting something magical, something new, and what you get is a book that is kind of like a It's a Wonderful Life, Groundhog Day kind of book. Like, I'm not so familiar with It's a Wonderful Life to be able to tell you the similarities and differences, but basically in The Midnight Library, you've got a woman who tries to kill herself and ends up in this library where she's able to see alternate realities where like her life could have ended differently, but she also is able to see the impact she has on others by living the life she did, or rather by not living the life she did. And it's such a done to death concept, and it did feel very much like you've seen it in It's a Wonderful Life. There was an episode of One Tree Hill that did it. Like, it's not an original concept and people love it, and I was like, what is this book? It's just, oh, sorry. The next book that I've got is The Cousins by Karen M McManus, and I'm really annoyed that I don't like this book because the UK edition the edition I have is the UK edition, so it's that cover, and it has black sprayed edges, so very, very cool. And then I recently, my local Waterstones had a competition that I was one of the winners of, yay. And in the like prize, I got a few different like ARC editions, like based on what they thought I'd like. And I got an ARC edition of The Cousins. And I'm really mad because this is such a cool edition. But also, like, I know it's part of the story, the whole you know what you did. But also, you do know what you did, book. You were rubbish. So this is the first time that I read anything from Karen M McManus, and it didn't leave a very good impression. It was a really slow book and it didn't really build up the intrigue. I was just bored by it. And then to add to that, you've got this relationship that felt borderlinely incest. So the whole point is that you've got these three cousins like that are spending their summer working at this hotel, and one of the cousins turns out to actually not be their cousin. He has been hired by the person who is actually their cousin to stand in because he didn't want to go. So they're not related. They're not actually related. However, before they know they're not related, these two people are like carrying on together and having a budding romance. It's like, ew, your cousins, stop now, please. So that didn't sit well with me. So overall, not a great introduction to the author, and it has made me go, maybe this isn't the author for me. But also, I've heard some good things about her other work, so maybe The Cousins was just a swing and a miss. I don't know. The next two books are both by Neil Gaiman. So the first of them is Norse Mythology, and I don't have like super strong feelings about this book, but it made me sad because up until the point that I read this book, I had actually really loved everything from Gaiman that I'd read, and then I read this book and it lacked that Gaiman spark. And it just made me sad that this is the one Neil Gaiman book that I didn't love. I think what I didn't like was that this book seemed to keep very, very, it was very honest to the original mythology, as far as I'm aware. So it didn't have that creativity and originality that I'd come to know from Gaiman. On the other side, yay, I know a lot more about Norse mythology now. I just think I could have learned it in a lot more entertaining a way. So I'm just kind of sad, and it leaves a sour taste in my mouth because it is, a Gaiman that I didn't love. And then the second Neil Gaiman book is, it's upside down, The Sleeper and the Spindle. And the reason that I am wish I hadn't read it and I'm really disappointed is that it is queerbaiting. So you look at this cover and you go, oh, two women. This is going to be a queer Sleeping Beauty retelling. And I get that the whole point is that it's meant to mislead you, because like the person that like is Sleeping Beauty, Aurora, isn't actually Sleeping Beauty. She's a evil witch. And whilst the kiss does wake her up, she's not the person that the princess intends to wake up, or queen. Let me see. So yeah, she's not the person that the queen intends to wake up. But it just, like, I'm just so let down by the fact that I thought this was going to be queer and it isn't. Like, you can maybe say that the queen's queer because she's not bothered that the slumbering princess is a princess as opposed to a prince. But also, I don't know, it's really difficult because she seems not bothered, but I would say that she's kind of like not bothered in general about romance. So like, again, that's another queer identity. But I was expecting a sapphic retelling, and I definitely didn't get that. And that's why I'm so saddened by it. But also, I have seen alternate covers for this book that don't have that on the cover. But then again, you still have the story of a queen going to wake up the Sleeping Beauty. So I don't know if this book had had a different cover, if I would equally have felt as queer-baited. But I definitely felt queer-baited by this one. So the next book that I've got is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. And I know this is a very beloved book, and possibly I just didn't get it, but it was a deeply uncomfortable book, and it contained graphic depictions of rape, and also it had a very heavy feel of male gaze, which made me think that the author wasn't a woman. But the fact that this book is written by a woman just made it all the worse, I guess, because it was so heavy into the male gaze. And I think it's trying to be a mirror to society and put forward a message, but it just was so heavy and dark, and not dark in the way that I enjoy, that I kind of wish I'd never had to experience it. The next book is just one that was kind of disappointing, really, and it is Unnatural Causes by Dr. Shepherd. Oh, I've not written down authors for these. By Richard Shepherd. I went into this book expecting it to be much more like Stiff Bodies by Mary Roach, where it talks about death and pathology and that kind of thing. And what I got was a memoir of Dr. Richard Shepherd, and it's hard because his life it's hard to talk about people's memoirs because it's like you're commenting on their life, and I know I live a very boring life, but then I'm not going to put a memoir out. And I just felt like this book had been missold, because it seemed like it was going to be a book about pathology, the criminal justice system, that kind of thing. But it was just a very indulgent memoir into his life. And it didn't give me anything, really. We're down to the final two books, and they're two very different books, to be honest. So the first of these final two is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne. And this is another one like the Cousins that I'm really mad it's not a great book, because look at the naked hardback. Like, that is absolutely stunning and annoying that it's so beautiful. But like, frankly, this was just a very, very long book for what it is. Like, this is a backstory to Coriolanus Snow from the Hunger Games. And he just didn't need a backstory. And because it's very difficult, like, so if you've read the Hunger Games, you know that Snow is the primary antagonist. Or at least he appears to be the primary antagonist. And he is bad. You know, it's unquestionable that he's bad. It's unquestionable that he is bad. So you kind of don't want him to have a sympathetic backstory. And Collins has been smart about that, and you don't give him a sympathetic backstory. But the problem is that not giving him a sympathetic backstory and him basically starting out as not a great person means that where a book would normally have an arc, this has a straight line. You start off with Snow being a bad person. He seems like he's being a good person, maybe, but he's still only looking out for himself, so he's still a bad person. And then he goes off and joins the like armed forces, and he's continuing to be a bad person, and then he ends as a bad person, and there's no change in him, and you're just like, this is not interesting. And probably what would have been the most interesting part of this story, which was the Hunger Games aspect, especially because it was a very, like, these Hunger Games were very different from the Hunger Games you see in the original trilogy. But they're over so quickly, and you don't see much of it because you're following, you're just following Snow's perspective. So if Snow can't see something that's going on, he doesn't know what's happening. And in that point, you really suffer from this being a single POV book, because you have no idea what's going on during the Hunger Games. And like, this is a fairly common opinion, really, that this book needed to be, well, it would have been a lot better with dual POV, where you're following the tribute that Snow is paired off with, and following her POV as well as following Snow. And also, there was some really bizarre pacing issues. Like, the book would seem like it was going very, very slowly, and then half a page and a lot would happen in quick succession. Like, I'm not going to actually show you this. I mean, if you're watching this, you probably know spoilers anyway. But this page, right, this one here, so literally the start of here, like, he thinks all is good, and that is like this massive quick turnaround. And it's like, the book has been dragging and dragging and dragging, and then suddenly you've got that much that tells you everything all at once, and it just did not work at all for me. And then the final book that I really wish I'd never read was The Lost Witch by Melvin Burgess. And this is a book that I can't see how anyone could like, because it's so damn questionable. So the primary issue that I've got with this book is that it's really, really damn paedophilic. So this girl finds out that she's a witch, which is like, cool, awesome, great trope, secret witch, etc. And then there's like twists and turns and twists and turns, and it's constantly, you don't know what's really happening. And she ends up going off with this boy that she's kind of crushing on. And this boy that she goes off with, she's crushing on, but he's a couple of years older than her. I think you're talking about maybe 19 and she's 15. I don't remember. I remember that she's not 16. So yeah, she goes off with him, and then she basically only got him around, so she's completely reliant on him, and it ends up this kind of Stockholm Syndrome-ish kind of situation. And then there's a very clear part of the story where this male character waits until she's turned 16 to have sex with her. And I think it was literally like, he said that he was waiting for her to turn 16. And on her 16th birthday, he had sex with her, which is dodgy as anything anyway. But then it later transpires that this character that you think is like 19 or however old you think he is, like he is a good few years older than her. It transpires that he's actually this witch that has this shape-shifting power, and he's like a 70-year-old witch, so it's like it's extra creepy and extra paedophilic, and it's just really, really uncomfortable. And it really doesn't sit with me. Like, anyone that says this book was good, I wonder, have we read the same book? Do you not understand how wrong this is? And like, even ignoring that bit, which you shouldn't ignore anyway, but even ignoring that, it's not a great book. Like, it's a lot of kind of, you think you know what's going on, and then the next minute things twist and turn, and it's very hard to find your feet in the story. So, not a great book in general. So, do you agree with any of the books that I've mentioned in this video? And are there any books that you wish you'd never read? And until next time, bye!